So what is Bordeaux? Bordeaux is 23 bottles that are sold all over the world every second. It's the largest wine region in France with 65 appellations. We have about the volume, the numbers vary, but let's say around 7,000 producers. And 7,000 producers, 300 cave cooperatives, and about 300 wine traders all over Bordeaux. So Bordeaux is old world. It started off in the Gallo-Roman era, you know, where they planted when they planted grapes, and then Bordeaux became more structured during the Middle Age. And it has never stopped till then. I mean, everybody knows Bordeaux. When you think Bordeaux in China, when you ask someone what first comes to their mind when they think Bordeaux, when they think wine, they will say Bordeaux. You ask a Canadian what is their first word that comes to mind when they think wine, they will say Bordeaux. You ask an American, and then you guys have a different sense of wines because you are a wine producing country. So we come in 33rd place in the US, when in China and France and Canada, we come in first. So just different things, but Bordeaux is the largest wine region of France and has a great story. It was a woman that really made the story of trading in Bordeaux during in the 16th century. Was Aliénor d'Aquitaine. Aquitaine is the southwest area. I live in Bordeaux, so my department is Aquitaine. And she was a really beautiful woman. She had about 12 children. And it's a crazy story for the period because she married two kings. First, she married the French king and then divorced and then got married to the English king. And from then started the whole trading with England and what we call the claret. And that's how the commercial exchanges got started. Then in the 18th century, there was a lot of trading with the English islands, the lesser islands, Saint-Domingue, all the French islands also. And then the Dutch also came around, and we had a lot of, there's like, inside of Bordeaux, there is different quartiers, I don't know how you would call this, little areas. So we have the areas where all the wine used to be made with the cellars. The grapes would come from the outside. They would bring the grapes, and then the vinification was done inside Bordeaux. Well, little by little, it was in the 1700s, the Dutch came around and invested in this area. They were traders, and they started making their own type of wine. Claret was too light for them. They wanted something more with a keeping potential. So they started coming around, and that's when the trading got even better at that period. Then later on, 1875, came phylloxera crisis, and then we lost almost the whole vineyard of Bordeaux, and we had to wait for American rootstock to be able to reconstruct the vineyard. And since then, it has been growing and has been very diverse. So 65 appellations. Maison Raymond is located, and I didn't put a map, but that's really unfortunate. We're located in the largest area of Bordeaux. Entre-deux-Mers is, so among the 65 areas, and I don't know if you will see it, but the Entre-deux-Mers is the whole green part over here. So this is the place where counts the most wine growers out of Bordeaux. So with Family Raymond, they started in 1850. It's a family-owned vineyard since 7 generations. It started with Chateau de la Garde. And then in 1980, Lionel's father, Jean-Pierre, started transforming polyculture, like melons and all different kind of fruits and vegetables, to vineyards, because back then, the wine was sold more than crops. So so the vineyard represented then 70 hectares, which is quite 70 hectares. I don't know, maybe 150 acres, something like that. So which is, quite something. On the reds, we are in Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc. And now we have Malbec, but not back then. And on the white, we have Sauvignon Blanc, Sauvignon Gris, and Sémillon. No Muscadel, just because of personal dislike, I guess you would say. So in the year 2000, Jean-Pierre calls in Lionel. He wants him, he's having a hard time, he's lost a lot of markets. He wanted to change his strategy and lost a lot of customers. So he calls in Lionel. Lionel is in Chile back then. He's an engineer in Carton. And so Lionel comes back to the property, and it was a little bit of faith that got us to be organic, because in 2000, being organic on a vineyard in France and anywhere in the world was like, are you crazy or what? We waited, so many years to have something to save our crops, and you're just gonna go back the old way. Wait. So in 2000, they were harvesting, and the next door neighbor, who had always been organic, he started tasting the grapes and said, hey, wow, less grapes on the vine, but much more concentration on the grape. And the quality, just a lot of difference. So he bought the next door neighbor vineyard, which was on sale. He bought it and decided to convert everything to organic. So at that point, in the year 2000, we had not many markets left, and we had to go back, and people were like, okay, I'm going to take your wine because it's good, but please don't put it's organic on there. Please don't do that. So back then it was like that. Now you have to put it 5 times with a neck cone, and everything. So lots of changes. 2007, we get an enologist that also works as a technical director, and Michael is still in the company. He started at the same time as I did, and we're still in there. I got hired in 2007 as an export manager. There was nothing except Belgium exports. We're now in Japan, China, Canada, USA, the islands, and Asia, and a little bit of Europe. And we have Anna, and now a Chinese girl that is helping us, Yin. We also got quality service department, which allowed us to be HACCP, and also we're now IFS, which is International Featured Standards. To work with some supermarkets in England, as an example, you need those certifications, or else they won't even talk to you. So they're really quality controlled certification. And in 2007, we got the NOP certification for the US. It's a double certification. We're certified for France and Europe, and we are also certified for the US, which allows us to say on our wines, wine made from organically grown grape. Without the certification, we wouldn't be able to say that. And we were one of the first to go and with the NOP certification. So we're the largest organic vineyard in Bordeaux. We are the largest family-owned organic vineyard in France, and we were one of the first to go with the NOP certification for the US. Because, and there's a reason behind that, is we had enough quantity to go to big exports. What I mean by that is that the worldwide demand on organic wines is superior than the production. So by the time you sell to your own country, you sell to Europe, most of the time you don't have enough volumes to go further. So, but we were able to do to a larger volume. So, as I said, we have, today we have vineyards in Bordeaux, 180 hectares owned and 70 in farming, which means that we have next door neighbors that are inorganic. They still have their land, but we come and harvest. We come and follow and harvest, and then that's part of farming. It's not a property, but we pick their grapes. So 180 owned, 70 hectares in farming 250 hectares in Entre-deux-Mers. So the largest family-owned organic vineyard in France. We also have 110 in near Carcassonne, so in IGP Doc, inorganic. And then 40 hectares in Médoc, in Cru Cassé Bourgeois, but that is conventional, not organic certified. So we have on Lagarde, the main winery, we have 2,600 meters square of solar panels. So it's the largest photovoltaic property in France. And we would be able to provide the electricity for about eight small cities in France. And when I mean 8 small cities, it's 8 small cities in France and not the US. It wouldn't be the same large people. I mean, the same amount of people. Sorry. In all our projects, we try to be as green and sustainable as possible. We collect rainwater to wash down the tractors. We recycle all the cartons. We recycle the bottles. Just to let you know, in France, I think it's about 90% of the bottles come from recycled bottles, glass bottles. So there is really a chain like that is pretty well made. We at every corner have recycling glasses. So that's, I think that the numbers are there. 90% comes from recycled water. Glass, comes from glass. So 2014, we added on a second cellar and improved our certification with the IFS standard, which I told you about. And we also, Laurent Abba came on board. He's our director, our CEO, I guess you would say. And he has a solid experience of 20 years in the wine industry. So that definitely made a turn for us. And in 2017, I became just the US ambassador. I felt like I needed to spend more time in the US, and having 2 kids, it was a little bit complicated for me to go back and forth to Asia. And also with age, it was like I would spend 2 weeks in China, come back home for 1 week, and then go to Vancouver. And Vancouver, my meetings were just terrible. I was a zombie. So So I became the US ambassador, just taking care of the US and a little bit of Canada. And Anna Berville joined us, and Anna is in charge of Europe and Asia. So in 2018, we got a second bottling factory warehouse. But the first was the first has a bottle capacity of 4,000 bottles per hour, which is very good. Well, I mean, and that's on, you know, normal volume, if you're not missing something or if something doesn't break. Or but we were at a time where our delays on orders were at 1 month and a half, almost 2 months. So we really needed a new bottling line. Bag in boxes also, it requires a long line, and we just didn't have the spot. And everywhere in the world right now, people are asking for bag in boxes more and more. So we really needed a second bottling line and warehousing. And so that was built. And Edward, Lisa, and Ruta visited in 2018 when they came for La Jolie. So two wineries today. One is the main one is Chateau de la Garde, is the historic one where it all started. And the second one is more modern style, new equipment, which, you know, we get our savoir-faire from La Garde, and we are able to use all these modern equipment in the second winery in Ayas. So we have, you know, starting in 2000 in organic, it was difficult, but we were always wine growers. And since 1850, before, we were organic wine growers. Organic was the cherry on top. So we were recognized for the quality of our wines, and then going organic, everybody thought it was crazy. But now seeing the conversion to organic agriculture, we were just a little bit in advanced. So our experience has led us to work with all the major chain supermarkets in France. Monoprix, Auchan, Carrefour, which would be Walmart, and also on our higher end, Michelin restaurants, such as Restaurant d'Arros. She's a lot on TV shows like Best Chefs. I don't know what you call it in the US, but we're also on web platforms. We sell in supermarkets in Europe, like Carrefour, Colruyt. And we have special partnerships at export, like with Huawei, the phones in China. In China, it's they buy the wine just for their business meetings and dinners. So, and they only want organic wines. So they came to us, and as I was telling you earlier, in China, when you say what is the first thing that comes to mind in China, they will say Bordeaux. So they really wanted a Bordeaux and organic, and they order containers for their business dinners, which is a crazy story. In Japan, we're at the Four Seasons with Léo de la Garde White, and we're at the sommelier school in Tokyo, and we've been there for almost 5 years with the wines, you know, and they're very interested in organic. We also work with a Belluna. They're a platform, and they send wines, you know, so they're getting, I mean, they're historical also. Greyhawk, Taiwan, providing wine cellars and restaurant. England, that's a funny story. Fornum and Mason. Probably the prettiest shop in England, Fornum and Mason on Piccadilly. They have a brand that's called Highgrove, and it's for the Prince Charles. In Highgrove, you can find tea, you can find cookies, you can find wine, you can find anything under the Highgrove brand. Highgrove requires to be organic, and under the organic wine, we do their white, with similar thing as Léo de la Garde, and we do their claret, the Bordeaux Supérieur. And all the benefits are given to the charities of the Prince Charles. So, and then USA, as you know, Whole Foods, Mariano's, Natural Grocers, and various restaurants and wine cellars.